Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Systems and people create leverage in your business. So in the strategy compass model, there's 5 stages, and step 5 of those is about increasing the capability and capacity of your business. And I break that down into another 5 areas. So the first one being systems, the second being cash, and about having, and which we've already alluded to. The third one being advance or innovate. We always have to be advancing or innovating. The fourth one being leadership and culture, and the fifth one being personal and team effectiveness. So, what systems do is able to enable you to deliver consistency of quality of customer experience, consistency and quality of product or service output to that customer, and enable you to replicate that time and time again through other people. And also with, automation, whether that be technological automation, machine automation, enable you to be able to create a greater output. So, it is massively important in building capacity so that your business can accept and deliver on more and more sales and more orders.
Hi, this is Heneka. I'm so glad you took the time to stop by today. In Jamaican parlance, Wagwan. I'm glad to say a dial. This episode is sponsored by HenekaWatkis-Porter.com as well as the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Now on HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, you can visit us for blogs, resources, books, online podcast courses, podcasts, and more. If you are new to the Entrepreneurial You podcast, be sure to check out past episodes with guests such as John Lee Dumas, Patrice Washington, Seth Godin, Richard Branson, Amy Porterfield, and a host of other game changers.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mahfood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
And now, here's today's episode. The essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. Michael Porter. Greetings, my peak performer. I trust that you are doing great wherever in the world you are listening right now. Welcome to episode 181 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter. Today's episode is with Gavin Preston. Now, Gavin is an inspirational speaker, business strategist, author, business growth mentor, and host of the Business Mastermind Podcasts. He works with business owners and entrepreneurs to double their business in a year. Yes, you heard me, double their business in a year. His new book, Survive and Thrive, How to Secure, Scale, and Succeed in Business, is a collection of practical tools and techniques that he has been successfully implementing with businesses over the last decade. Now, Gavin has worked with a wide range of businesses and multinational corporations like Ford, Carphone Warehouse, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and the United Nations, even the Metropolitan Police. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we'll be having surrounding the strategic compass, a framework to propel your business into a huge growth trajectory. Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you, Heneka, for having me. I'm so excited to join you on your show.
I'm excited to have you too. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of our conversation, do you know any Jamaican words or phrases?
No, I don't. I actually sailed across the Atlantic and spent some time in St. Lucia. I spent some time in the BVIs, but I've not actually had the privilege, and the Bahamas, but I've not had the privilege of coming to Jamaica. So please share with me, teach me some Jamaican words.
Yeah, you got to fix that, man. So we say no problem, man, right?
No
Everything,
problem.
no problem, man. Everything is all right. It's Irie.
Great.
Okay, let's move in. Let's talk about your own start story, Gavin, how you got into business and why.
I got into business because from a childhood age of 15, two things happened in parallel. My dad was in his own business. He was very interested in entrepreneurialism and business growth, and he was in sales in particular. And in addition to the conversations that we had around the dinner table as a child growing up, the second aspect was I got really into personal growth and development because at the age of 15, he handed me a book called The Success System That Never Fails by W. Clement Stone. And in it was a quote from his mate, W. Clement Stone's best friend or good friend, Napoleon Hill of Think and Grow Rich. And the quote was, what the mind can conceive, believe, the mind can achieve, the famous Napoleon Hill quote. And my dad said to me when I was studying for my GCSE exams in the UK at the age of 15, 16, my dad said to me, think about getting your 9 A's at GCSE and say to yourself 50 times a day, what the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve, and think about the 9 A's. And I went, okay, Dad. I didn't know any different. And I did that. I got my 9 A's and it blew my mind. And I was hooked from there on in on around personal development, personal growth, mindset. So I had that in conjunction with a real exposure to business through training with KPMG and qualifying with them as a chartered accountant. And I found a way to bring them both together, both these areas of interest, business and helping businesses to grow, and the mindset stuff to really coach business owners to scale and grow.
Interesting. So whatever the mind can conceive, indeed, it can achieve. I wholeheartedly believe that. So what are some of the things from an earlier age that you have been conceptualizing so that you're now looking at them, staring them in the face, happening right around you?
Oh, wow. Oh, I'll give you an example where I live now. So I live on the North Wales coast in the UK, in a place called Deganwy. And I've been a big fan for some time of visualization, actually from the age of 15, 16, reading those two books, Success System That Never Fails and Napoleon Hill, and visualization came out really strong for me. And I used to live in the English Lake District in a place called Windermere, which was beautiful. And I remember some time ago coming on a short break, a weekend break down to the North Wales coast and driving around and loving being by the sea because sailing's a massive part of my life. And I remember specifically saying to the partner I had at the time that if there was anywhere else in the UK I would like to live other than where I was living in Windermere or right down on the south coast, it would be, of all places, Deganwy. And some years later, when I met and fell in love with and married my wife, we looked in the area because she was from Conway, and it was the house that we found was in Deganwy. And it was only some time later that I remembered this original conversation and thought process, and I am living in the very place I sent out the intention where I wanted to live.
Interesting. So visualizing, see it in your mind's eye, and then eventually you begin to, it begins to materialize. And so it's important what we think about, that we think whatever things is pure, whatever things are pure, just, honest, and true, we shall think about those things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to scale your business, what are some of the things that you need to get first? Because we're going to be talking about, this framework. So let's kind of ease into it a bit. What are some of the things that we need to get right first as we're thinking about scaling?
So you first need to secure your platform for growth. Growth is hungry on cash. Growth is hungry on people. It's demanding on people. It's demanding on the systems in an organization. So first of all, to secure that platform for growth, you need to look at your cash reserves, your cash flow planning, cash flow forecasting, and make sure that you've got enough working capital in the business. You need to sort of tighten up, make sure that you're not losing unnecessary expenditure, losing money out of your business. So looking at your cost base and tightening that up so that you're maximizing your profit. And then looking at, are the people in the business the right people for the business, and are your systems and processes ready for you to be able to cope with greater transactional volume, greater demand in your business? So in my book, Survive and Thrive, How to Secure, Scale and Succeed in Business, part one, the survive part, is this all about the things you need to do to sort out the cash, to maximize your profit here and now, so that your business is not only surviving, but you built a solid platform ready for growth. Or the other analogy I use, because I did, as I mentioned in the opening, that I sailed across the Atlantic. The other analogy that I use is if you've got leaks in your boat before you go across an ocean, you need to make sure your boat is seaworthy for that voyage of growth and discovery. And in a business terms, you need to make sure that your basic business fundamentals are sound before you start to give it the challenges of growth.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about leakages. Where are some of the areas that entrepreneurs, business owners perhaps have a lot of leakage, but they're not even recognizing?
Well, one thing is stability around cash flow. And, businesses, I've seen businesses many times that are fundamentally sound, they've got good profitability, but they go bust because they've run out of cash, whether that a big customer has gone bust on them and it's taken them down with them, or whether they've just started to grow too quickly and there is more money tied up in raw materials and waiting to be paid from customers, and you've still got to pay out money to employees and to suppliers, and you've got, in any 1 week you could have more money going out than you've got coming in, and you've got insufficient funds available. So really good, accurate cash flow forecasting over the next 3, 6, even 9, 12 months is really important for businesses if they want to scale. And in my experience, if you think, in order to be able to grow, I'm going to need a certain amount of extra working capital in my business, some more, whether it's through bank loan or overdraft or invoice financing to be able to do it, you're probably going to need at least half more than you thought you would. So that's one area. And I think in a business, over time, particularly in the world of subscription models and software as a service, we can start to take on a lot of extra costs that creep up over time, whether it's software, whether it's office space that's either not ideal, whether it's subscriptions, whether it's water cooler costs, or whatever it might be, that there are things that can increase over time. We might not renegotiate the best deal on utility supply or on mobile phones or whatever it might be. So to go through down your sort of cost base to say, what are the things that we can reduce that are no longer essential? What are the direct debits that we can stop that are no longer essential? And I think also, as we go through a world, or we experience a world that the global economy is being massively impacted by COVID-19 and lockdowns around the planet, I think more and more you'll see businesses shifting more of their cost base from fixed cost to variable cost. So what I mean by that, they might sort of finish off on sort of expensive office or shop leases as people are working more from home. You'll see businesses reducing their employee headcount, and they will be employing up to, in terms of full-time employees, they'll be employing up to their troughs in demand, and they will be fulfilling their peaks in demand through freelancers, through the gig economy, through subcontractors. So those are some of the things you can do right now to get you fit for growth, and particularly in an uncertain, global environment.
Mm-hmm. You talk about a business framework and, of course, for growth. And there's no way we can talk about that without touching on something that you've already alluded to, which is the systems and processes that business owners will implement. Let's talk a little about that. How important is it, and how can they go about systemizing their business in a way that will be beneficial to growth?
Yeah, it's crucially important. Systems and people create leverage in your business. So in the strategy compass model, there's 5 stages, and step 5 of those is about increasing the capability and capacity of your business. And I break that down into another 5 areas. So the first one being systems, the second being cash, and which we've already alluded to. The third one being advance or innovate. We always have to be advancing or innovating. The fourth one being leadership and culture, and the fifth one being personal and team effectiveness. So what systems do is able to enable you to deliver consistency of quality of customer experience, consistency and quality of product or service output to that customer, and enable you to replicate that time and time again through other people. And also with automation, whether that be technological automation, machine automation, enable you to be able to create a greater output. So it is massively important in building capacity so that your business can accept and deliver on more and more sales and more orders.
And you touched on something that is kind of hard to measure, right? Culture and team effectiveness and so on. Well, you can measure team effectiveness, but in terms of from a mental and mindset perspective, let's touch a little on that. How important is setting the right cultural framework so that teams know exactly what they're supposed to be expecting and moving forward, in the direction of the leadership.
Yeah, I think it's massively important, and particularly at times when we've got a lot of uncertainty out there in the marketplace and people are personally, employees and senior managers and even business owners are feeling apprehensive and really nervous about the uncertainty and what that means to their livelihoods. So the role of the founder or the owner, the leader of the business is to be able to set direction, but it's also to be able to engage the hearts, the minds, the souls of the people working for them and point them in a direction. And this links very closely to culture and leadership. Is the first stage of the strategy compass is about purpose. We all need a North Star. What are we up to? What are we aiming for? And particularly when, back to my sailing analogy, if our GPS navigational instruments would have broken down or over the crossing of the Atlantic, we still had a sextant on board, so we could have navigated by the stars to get ourselves to St. Lucia. And we so even in respective of the weather systems, the storms that came through, we would have adjusted and alter course to best avoid bad weather, but we still would be locked onto our ultimate destination. And that's what leadership is about right now, is that we need to have a purpose in our business about what we're up to in the world and the difference that we're making to our customers and our customers' customers. And when we're clear on what that sort of star is, that North Star, it can help us stay focused on where we're heading, even though we might have to have short-term changes of course, to deal with what's happening right now. And if we show up in our business uncertain, if we show up hesitant, if we show up nervous, apprehensive and scared, that's going to convey through, communicate throughout the whole of the organization. They say that a fish rots from its head, and we need to be making sure that we're creating a nimble and agile culture of people that are engaged with what we're doing and who embrace change, because we're having to change at an ever increasing pace at the moment.
Mm-hmm. As you talk about a nimble and agile culture, what do you mean exactly by that?
It was interesting. There's an article I put out a podcast earlier. Well, it'll go out on Thursday of this week. That was talking about how we increase our adaptability as an organisation, and I specifically was drawing on an article by Bain Consulting, and they were saying that, and I'll paraphrase what they were saying, that, but in order to create an adaptable culture, there was. They had 3 areas that they then had 3 sub areas, so there was 9 points, but I'll just go through the 3 areas. One is direction, having clarity of where you're heading, so that kind of piece I was talking about with the North Star. The second was being able to flex your capacity, so I've already alluded to that, and being able to flex your resource that you bring to bear on a project, or flex your hire vehicles instead of buy them, for example. And then creating a change-orientated culture. So this is a culture that really accepts, but not only accepts, but embraces, look, we're going to have to innovate, we're going to have to change, we're going to have to try something, and if it doesn't work, we try something else. The idea that we used to plan and then execute, and now we're going to be having to do a really quick iterative process of try something, if it doesn't work, try something else if it doesn't work. So the mindset of individuals in that business need to be up for that. This is what's necessary in order for us to adapt, to survive, and then ultimately to thrive.
Mm-hmm. So to sail on your navigation analogy for a bit, Gavin, to weather the storms, you really need to know where you're going, where that ship is sailing to, so that you can properly navigate, lest you be tossed about by the storm that come. Now, in terms of the goal setting approach, businesses setting goals and so on, talk to us a little about that, because I find that sometimes people just go on a whim and fancy and do whatever they want to do without setting the right goals.
Yeah, for sure. I did a 2-year speaking tour for HSBC Bank in the UK, and we did 84 events over the whole of the UK over 2 years. And every audience I asked, put your hand up, who here has clearly written down and articulated goals for the next 1, 2, 3 years? And surprisingly, in every single of those 84 venues, only 20% of the room put their hands up. And it just was a really stark reminder to me that most people keep running the same year again and again, and they just win as many sales as they can, and they don't necessarily set a destination. And hey, when we switch on a sat nav or the app on our phones, after we've powered it up, we put a very specific destination in of where we're heading. And irrespective of any traffic jams or roadblocks that we might get on the way, roadworks, the sat-nav will divert us around it to ultimately, in best speed, get us to that destination that we want to get to. But in order to do that, you still need that postcode or very specific address to get to. And business owners need to say, well, where is it that we want to be in a year, in 3 years, etc. And for some business owners, the 3 to 5 year time frame could be, I want to be finding an exit, I want to be selling my business, or I want to have developed a succession in my business so my team can run it, and I can step back and enjoy other projects.
Mm-hmm. As we look at the strategic compass, some of the things that we've not yet touched on, what is missing from that compass, from that direction that we need to be going to, propel our business to that growth trajectory that we're looking for?
Mindset is critical. Mindset, and I've found, is the difference that makes the difference in shifting or increasing the growth trajectory of a business. So yes, it's absolutely imperative. I share a number of mindset tools. I've already spoken about visualization. We talk about how we can shift somebody's identity, who they see themselves at. So if the identity they see themselves is somebody that's struggling operating a local business, and they actually would love to operate a successful international business, then they need to be telling a different story of themselves. And particularly if they've had setbacks over recent months, it's very easy to start to tell a story of being a victim. And I think we should rewrite our own Hollywood story, our own comeback story, where we are the victor, the hero of the story, and we're writing a version of ourselves and a version of our business of where we want it to be. So I encourage my clients, and I do this on a daily basis, that I read out the version of where I'm heading my business, the future version of myself and my business, and it's really locking my subconscious onto the direction that I'm heading. Then I supplement that with visualizations of not only seeing, but feeling what it would be like to live that reality. And day by day and every way, I get that bit closer to achieving that goal. And that's something that I've really worked on with my clients around mindset. And it's really opened up their minds to the art of the possible about what they could really achieve, not only in their business, but in their personal lives as well, and with their family and with their health.
Mm-hmm. As I listened to you talk, something came into my mind, and is that the comeback is always better than the setback.
I love that. What a great line.
What personal setback, thank you, have you experienced, Gavin, as you go through business?
Yeah, I think a big one a couple of years ago. So I paused my sort of coaching consultancy work, and I went to join the board of a business in the construction sector, a mechanical and electrical contracting business. And we set some very ambitious or aggressive targets to take the business from 11 million turnover to 50 million turnover in 5 years. And my job was to build the functional capability in that business. So I didn't have a background in construction, but I had a background in knowing what to do to scale a business. So I was responsible for strategy, for marketing, for HR, for finance, for legal. And we were growing well. We grew it from 11.5 million to 19 million in 18 months. And then our biggest customer went bust and owed us £1.9 million and went bust and took us out with it. So, some investors and some business people will say, how many times have you cycled? And what they're meaning by, have you had the experience of the rise and then the demise? And yeah, it was a heck of a setback. It was a very stressful experience, and it was horrible to see it happen to everybody in the business. I learned a lot from it. I've got there's a lot of post-mortem in my thought process afterwards, and know what we could have changed and what we couldn't have changed. And we did a lot of things right, but evidently we didn't do it all right. And the consequence for that business, unfortunately, was very upsetting, and it was terminal. So yeah, that was a pretty big setback.
Mm-hmm. And so you talk about some lessons, you've learned some lessons from that. Perhaps you can share one of that, and how did you really get back out of, come back from that major setback right there?
Okay, so one of the lessons was this particular customer that went bust. We kept putting us off by saying, yes, we're going to pay you. So we asked for a meeting with their board of directors. And we sat down with the board of directors in front of their top team, including the financial director. And he was aggressive. And he he flipped it back round and saying, why are you asking about us when actually we're worried about your cash flow? And at the time, he was so confident, he was so composed. He was saying that, we've got extra funding from private equity. We've got X £1 million credit line we can tap into, what you don't. And I would think, hold on, the best form of defense is attack, because that's exactly what he did. And I would say, okay, can you demonstrate to us this line of credit that you've got for private equity? Because he was evidently, bluffing, and it didn't have the substance, or it didn't materialize. So I took him at face value. I looked him in the eyes, and he convinced me. I wouldn't fall for that without seeing the evidence in the future. And I would also have, I guess, the experience and the wisdom to go, that's interesting. Why are you suddenly attacking me or us as a team? What's that about then? And I think that's one of the most profoundly insightful sophisticated coaching questions I've ever been taught and used is, so what's that all about then? To ask yourself in that moment, he's getting really aggressive. So why is he doing that? And then if I had that presence of mind at that time, I would have probably had that phrase, the best form of defense is attack, and I would have dealt with that differently. The second part to your question, Heneka, is how did I come back from that? Was I decided that what had been really missing in the 18 months, 2 years of doing that from a purpose point of view was the joy and the fulfillment of really helping clients to turn their business around and to scale it and grow it. So I reconnected with some of my clients, and I think from my previous clients, and one of them was having some challenges. A previous member of their finance team hadn't been up to the job, and he was he had a very serious cash flow challenge himself that he was facing. And in 8 or 9 months, we turned that business around. We took him from a £500,000 hole in his profitability, in his cash flow, to money in the bank at the end of the year, to a profitable business at the end of the year. So that was quite a rewarding project to turn around. And then with the podcast, the Business Mastermind Podcast as a base, it provided a new platform that has generated more leads. And I've worked with other clients since.
Mm-hmm. Sounds fantastic. Great story that you have, as a testament to your experience. Now, Gavin, we are about to wrap. So I'm going to ask you just to share your final thoughts around this subject, and perhaps share your contact information. I know you also have giveaways for our audience. So you can share that as well.
Yeah, sure. So, in any stage of in the market, so in any sector, in any country, in any stage of an economic cycle, there are always businesses that outperform the market. And what I've done with Survive and Thrive, how to secure, scale and succeed in business, is pull together a number of different concepts from different areas, marketing and mindset and strategy and the operational stuff to scale a business, along with purpose and accountability. I brought all these topics together into one place to to share with you a model that I've tried and tested over years now that I've got to help businesses to scale and grow. It's 25 years of work, but I wrote it because I wanted to find and experience more stability that I'd had as a child from my dad's earnings and incomes in his business, and that I'd had in the early stages of my career. So there'll be many people listening to this who run a business, who put their heart and soul into their business and sacrifice time with their family, sacrifice their health as a result of it. And I wanted to help them find the strategy, the route, the pathway to growing their business so that they could get it back on their terms. So to find out more, go to www.surviveandthrive.cc. So that is surviveandthrive.cc. I cover the cost of the book. The book's free. You just cover the cost of shipping and handling.
Oh, very good, Gavin. Gavin Preston, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience with my community. I have learned a lot from you, and I look forward to when this episode goes live, of course, and wishing you all the best on your onward journey.
Thank you so much, Heneka. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, my peak performer, for tuning into this episode with Gavin Preston. I certainly look forward to connecting with you next week. But in the meantime, you can connect with me for all things podcasting, whether it's books, coaching, online courses, etc., by visiting Watkis-Porter.com, sending me a WhatsApp on the icon. The WhatsApp comes directly to my phone, so you'll hear from me. I look forward to hearing from you. And my point of hope this week is trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. Proverbs 3, verse 5. Walk good.